All right, so if you've been following Canadian immigration, you know things are about to get a major shakeup. We're talking about a huge proposed overhaul to express entry, which is, Canada's go-to system for skilled workers. The government's dropping hints about some really big shifts, so let's break down what this all could mean as we head towards 2026.
So here's what we're going to cover. First, why is Canada even doing this? Then we'll get into this brand new innovation stream they're proposing. After that, we'll see how they're planning to tackle those key job shortages. We'll also unpack a really fundamental debate that's going on. And finally, we'll look at the timeline. When is all this actually happening? Ready? Let's get into it.
Okay, first things first. We have to get our heads around the why of all this. Before we even touch on the new stuff, let's quickly remember what express entry is and why on earth a system that so many people rely on is suddenly up for a massive rethink. So express entry at its core is basically a giant points game. You put in a profile, right? And the system gives you a score, the CRS score, based on everything from your age and education to how well you speak English or French. That score then ranks you against everybody else who's in the pool. The higher your score, the better your shot at getting that golden ticket, an invitation to apply for permanent residency. Simple as that. And that leads us to the million-dollar question, doesn't it? If the system works and is so popular, especially for applicants from places like India, why mess with it? Why is the Canadian government talking about a major reset? Well, the short answer is the government's priorities seem to be changing. And those changing priorities, they lead us straight to what is probably the biggest change on the table. We're talking about a completely new innovation stream. The whole idea here is to go after top-tier, high-impact talent to really sharpen Canada's competitive edge on the world stage. Yeah, the absolute centerpiece of this whole thing is this new leadership and innovation stream. And let's be clear, this is not some minor adjustment. This is a brand new category they're creating from scratch, and it has a very, very specific mission. So who's on this VIP list? Well, the government paper points directly to people like senior managers, top-level researchers, and scientists. But here's where it gets really interesting. They're also talking about bringing in highly skilled military personnel from allied nations. The reason? To help keep Canada's defense force robust and world-class. Kind of unexpected, right? But, some experts are already saying this new category should be even bigger. For instance, immigration consultant Talha Mahani makes a great point. He says that if you really want to supercharge the economy, you need to make sure this stream includes proven entrepreneurs and investors. The people who don't just take jobs, they make them. It's a pretty powerful argument for using immigration to create growth from the ground up. Okay, so this new innovation stream is definitely getting all the attention. But the reset isn't just about that. It's also about doubling down on what express entry has always done. Finding people to fill critical jobs that Canada desperately needs. And the government's draft is crystal clear about which jobs are top of mind. We're still seeing huge, persistent shortages in a few key areas. Think healthcare, for one. Skilled trades are another big one, especially in construction. They need people to help with the housing crisis. And of course, you've got the STEM fields. Science, tech, engineering, and math. Those are always in high demand. One of the biggest, most dramatic changes we've seen lately has been this huge push for Francophone immigration. Seriously, ever since they started these category-based draws back in 2023, French language ability has just exploded. It's now the single biggest and fastest growing category, hands down. That tells you everything you need to know about how serious the government is about building up French-speaking communities, especially outside of Quebec. But this all leads to a debate, right? Which jobs should get top billing? For example, consultant Manish Kapoor thinks it's a mistake to leave out transport occupations. He argues that their role in the economy is just too important to ignore. And it really highlights the tough calls the government is facing here. You can't prioritize everyone. And all of this, it all boils down to one fundamental debate. This is really the heart of the entire reset. The government is basically turning to the public and asking for help answering one massive question that's going to shape the future of express entry. So here it is, the core of the debate. who gets priority? Should we focus on the skilled people who are already in Canada on temporary visas? Or should we focus on recruiting new talent directly from overseas? I mean, there are good arguments for both. If you focus on people already here, well, they're integrated, they know the society, and it eases some of the pressure on things like housing and healthcare. But if you recruit from abroad, you can surgically target the exact skills Canada is missing, bringing in fresh talent from around the globe. It's a real tug of war.
And leaning heavily into that in Canada argument, you have consultants like Ken Nicol-Lane. He's basically saying, hey, let's bring back the extra points for job offers for people who are already working here. His logic is super practical. These are the people that Canadian companies have already vetted. They've already said, we need this person for our long-term growth. It's an idea that's tied directly to what employers on the ground actually need. So what does all this mean for you, practically speaking? In this last part, let's look at the actual road to 2026. We'll talk timelines and some really important numbers you're going to want to keep an eye on. Okay, if you're even thinking about applying, you need to circle these dates on your calendar. So the window for public feedback closes in September 2025. Then, by late fall 2025, we expect the Immigration Department, IRCC, to have made its final decisions. And that's the big moment. That's when they'll roll out the whole new plan, along with the official immigration targets from 2026 all the way to 2028. Now, speaking of those targets, there's a really important piece of context here. While all this retooling of express entry is happening, Canada's overall immigration numbers are actually set to dip a little. We're looking at a drop from 395,000 permanent residents in 2025 down to about 365,000 by 2027. So fewer spots overall. But wait, there's one more number that changes everything, and it's a big one. At the same time all this is happening, the government has also announced a huge goal. They want to shrink the number of temporary residents, so students and temporary workers, down to just 5% of Canada's total population. And they want to do that by the end of 2026. This completely changes that whole debate we were just talking about. You know, in Canada talent versus recruiting from overseas. It adds a whole new level of pressure. So, as we wrap this up, it leaves us with a really big question, doesn't it? When you put it all together, the new focus on elite talent, the slightly lower immigration targets, and this new cap on temporary residents, what's the end game here? Is Canada building a more exclusive, harder to get into system? Or is this all just a smart, strategic play to build a more focused and competitive immigration system for the years ahead? I guess we'll get our answer in late 2025.